Hey, it's our weekly streaming show, and here's a sneak peek at our top streamer of the week. And this is an even uglier week than last, so I'm cheating. Go get you some Jordan Love, rostered in just 43% of Yahoo leagues, which is 3% higher than our 40% rule, but it's dismal out there. Love faces the Chargers, who are ranked dead last in AFPA to opposing quarterbacks. He's developed a nice rapport with rookie Jaden Reed in recent weeks. Love averaged over 3 rushing attempts and over a touchdown a game, and he has a great matchup. That's honestly the best you can hope for this week. Hopefully you can find him on your waiver wire. Now let's get to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Most Accurate Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Niles. With me is my fantastic co-host, the great, the irreplaceable Jen Akins. Jen, how's it going, buddy?
Wow, that's an intro. I'll take it. I'm good. I'm definitely better than last week. Once again, apologize to all the listeners and watchers for having to watch Brandon and I both slog through the sickness. I'm better. I can't say I'm 100%, but I'm definitely better. Ready to get to it. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of where you are. I'm still sick. I'm kind of got a lot going on here, but I feel better. You know what I mean? Last week I was feverish and seeing things and highly medicated. This week I feel better. I'm just kind of cloudy. So forgive me for the sniffles and anything else that happens. Thank you to everyone in the chat. We see you. We'll get to some of your questions later on. As a reminder, this is our streamer show. We highlight quarterbacks, tight ends, kickers, team defenses you should target as streaming options for the upcoming week. As a reminder, we only discuss the streaming option if they're available in 40% or less of Yahoo leagues, or if I'm cheating because Jordan Love is at 43%, but there's terrible quarterback options this week. So if your favorite options discussed, they're probably rostered in too many leagues. Let's hit a few of these questions. Office Depot, hello. I'm sorry I can't take your Chinese restaurant order, but it looks delicious, so I hope you enjoy it very much. I do see that you're trying to flip a first-round pick in Dynasty for David Montgomery and James Conner. I'm sorry, first rounder and Monty or Connor for a stud wide receiver and running back. Should be able to do that. Keenan Allen is someone that you could probably get for a first straight up, because most people don't think Keenan Allen has dynasty value, but he still seems to be really, really good. So target somebody like that, and you might not have to give up the running back. Let's go back to a couple other questions. Donald Weber, hello, wants to know if they should add Rondale Moore and drop Drake London. Jen, I'm going to let you handle that one just because I want to hear what you have to say about that Arizona offense with Kyler Murray back.
Well, Donald and Brandon, that was supposed to be TBD for later in the show.
Oh, I really got to read ahead. I never read ahead.
Yeah, but you know what? We'll just do it now. One of my stashes is Rondale Moore. I'll get to why later. How about that? We'll do a little teaser. The answer is, I don't know about dropping Drake London, though. I mean, honestly, at this point, you probably can. Mm-hmm. It's not pretty there with him, but I do like Rondale Moore. I don't know if maybe you have a different drop. If you don't, then yeah, I'll go ahead and say yeah. But if you tune in later for about 30 minutes, I will tell you why I like Rondale Moore.
Excellent. I love it very much. I'm kind of with Jen there. I don't know about dropping Drake London, but it seems like a pretty low cost maneuver nowadays. Like Drake London's not good enough right now, unfortunately. So we'll see. Will Hayes has Jacobs, Mixon, Montgomery, Breece Hall, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Deontay Johnson. Someone offered A.J. Brown for Breece Hall and Devontae Smith. I think with Jacobs, Mixon, and David Montgomery, I think that's a great move for you. A.J. Brown is a stud, one of the best fantasy receivers in the league. So you hate to give up Breece Hall, but he's wildly inconsistent, and Brown is a big enough improvement over Smith. You're good at running back. I would totally do that. Any argument, Jen?
No, I think you're good there. And I think with Chase and then with the addition of Brown, you can get by with Deontay and whatever else you had enough to get rid of Smith. I think that's fine.
Excellent. Before I get to more quarterbacks, I do want to say we're going to do a special additional episode of Team Map tomorrow. It's going to be an AMA live stream tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with me hosting. We're going to have Ryan McDowell from DLF and Pat Fitzmaurice on. We did this last year and had a blast. We answered a ton of questions, helped a lot of people out with their trade questions. And it's one of those things where I'm excited I could just defer to the experts because I've got a dynasty expert and a redraft expert. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So join us tomorrow for any kind of trade questions. We will answer as much as we can get to on the air. So I mentioned that the quarterback situation is terrible, Jen, and it's so bad. Like, I didn't want to cheat more than once. Otherwise, I'd throw out some 40%ers out there like Matthew Stafford, who has a good matchup. But Stafford's rostered in too many leagues. Jordan Love honestly is too. If you're, I'm hoping you just picked up Josh Dobbs last week and you could just start Dobbs. That's what I'm hoping. But if you can't, I guess you can squint and think Aidan O'Connell might be in a shootout with Miami and might get some garbage stats, I guess. He's rostered in only 5% of leagues. The Miami probably will beat the snot out of the Raiders. I think that should force the Raiders to throw. That hasn't really been the case the last 2 weeks against the Giants and the Jets, where O'Connell has been able to play ball control game. Miami's 24th in AFPA to opposing quarterbacks. So again, if you're squinting and if you're absolutely positively desperate, I can talk myself into Aidan O'Connell. And then if you squint even lower to the point where you really have your eyes shut and you're dreaming, Zach Wilson at Buffalo. Buffalo's 14th in AFPA, but Wilson played okay against them earlier this season. Buffalo's really Jekyll and Hyde. And the key element here, I'm looking for guys that might have a little rushing upside. Zach Wilson has 4 games with 24 or more rushing yards, including 54 last week. So the hope there is that he runs in a touchdown in an ugly game, which is kind of what we saw in the Denver Buffalo game last night. So, Jen, that's all I've got. Again, without cheating, I could have cheated and got a little bit more, but hey, it's ugly out there, Jen.
It's really bad. I DM'd you yesterday about this because I was like, ugh. I mean, it's really bad. I feel like hopefully everyone out there has somebody else that they've at least acquired over the last 10 weeks, because if you're looking at a desperation streamer, like you said, there's a few names, but the good news is that the quarterbacks that are on buys this week are likely not guys that you're really, losing. I mean, you're looking at either of the Falcons quarterbacks, you're looking at Gardner Minshew, you're looking at Mac Jones, and you're looking at Derek Carr / Jameis Winston. Yeah. So I would think that the majority of fantasy players out there might actually have a better option already on their roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Office Depot said that fantasy manager in their dynasty league laughed at them when they requested a second rounder for Dobbs, and now they're regretting not making that trade. It makes sense to me. Theo Maniatis, time to give up on Tony Pollard, trade him for Javonte Williams. We kind of touched on Pollard last week. It's one of those things, he's getting the opportunities he should be producing, almost like Tyler Bass and Jake Elliott, the kickers, right? Like everything points to this guy should be putting up numbers, but he's clearly not. I'm okay. Javonte's been good. Denver's offense seems to be trending in the right direction. I'm okay with that. Jen?
Yeah, I mean, Pollard was really close to getting in this
almost
weekend, and I was hoping. I mean, I actually don't have him on any rosters, but for everybody else out there that's been struggling with that, late first to second round pick that they spent on him, I was really hoping he got in for you guys, and he did not. But I'm okay with that. If you trade him for Javonte's certainly getting the volume, and he's been pretty efficient.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. So, hello, Mr. Scampers and Albert. Thanks for joining us. It is time now for me to ask the most anticipated question in the history of fantasy football podcasting. And that question is, Jen, is it a good week to stream tight end?
Not really, Brandon. It's not. I don't think it's not as awful as quarterback. I mean, it's not that gross, but it's not great. Once again, I hope that you are out there with some tight ends already sitting on your roster. If not, there's a few here that are going to be serviceable, but not great. First guy on the list to go along with your quarterback streamer of the week is Luke Musgrave. Against the Chargers, he is 24% rostered. So he's been averaging 4 targets a game since their week 6 bye. The Chargers are 27th against tight ends in adjusted fantasy points allowed. So, there's not a ton to say about it other than he's decent. Hopefully he'll be all right. He's serviceable. That offense is kind of strange, right? I mean, it's not, it's kind of hit or miss, a lot of miss. So hopefully against the Chargers, he'll be there for some points. I wouldn't expect any kind of boom week from him, but he's something. Second guy I have is
kind of interesting. Oh, I'm just saying, kind of interesting the youth there, right? You were trying to see who's going to develop with Musgrave and Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs, and Christian Watson's been disappointing, but like all those young guys, like somebody seems to be emerging, and then it's inconsistent. It's hard to really push out.
Right. No, absolutely. Office Depot, just so you know, the guy that you're talking about, we're going to talk about later. So I'm not going to talk about him right now. We're going to move on to Chig Okonkwo at Jacksonville. He's 26% rostered. So he's had 5 targets a game since Will Levis took over that offense. However, he's not getting utilized downfield, which is a bummer. I wish that he was getting more of that, but he's not. But the Jags are 18th in tight end adjusted fantasy points allowed. They're allowing 10.3 half PPR points a game to the tight end. So the matchup is there. Hopefully, him and Levis can get something going once again, just to serviceable this week, right? The third guy I have is Tyler Conklin at Buffalo. He's 11% rostered. So Tyler Conklin has had 13 targets in the last 2 weeks, with the Jets playing from behind in both of those games. He's the tight end 9 in half PPR points per game in the last 2 weeks in that same time frame. So you got to think this week, right? They're playing the Bills. They're probably going to be in the same situation, playing from behind, may get game scripted in that same way. And the Jets are actually, Buffalo is actually 23rd against the tight end adjusted fantasy points allowed. So, while Tyler Conklin is one of those not sexy picks, he's actually getting the volume. And if they are playing from behind, they might count on him again. So he's kind of my third guy as far as tight end streamer. And then the other guy that Office Depot brought up, I'm going to bring him up later in our stash section.
Excellent. I have a question for you. So Trey McBride is rostered in 59% of leagues, right? So that doesn't qualify for streaming. He is available in like 75% of my leagues.
Really?
So it's an all-in waiver wire. Like you, number one waiver priority, like all the fab you've got, right, for Trey McBride?
I would, yeah. I mean, I actually have him. I have him in the league. I was able to grab him in a league that I had Waller. I grabbed him like a week before Waller got hurt, thankfully, just because I was getting scared. And yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of targets, and Kyler Murray seems to like him. So yeah, I think that with the tight end landscape as gross as it is, if he's actually there in your league and you need someone, like if you don't have Kelsey, Andrews, Hawk, one of those guys, then yeah, I would be all in ish.
Yeah, I'm stunned by how available he still is. Although I guess it makes sense, with some question marks there. But boy, he just looked incredible with Kyler back under center.
Yeah.
So Jacob Ander has Tua and Kyler Murray. Got offered Jerome Ford for Kyler Murray. They could use the help at running back. Would we do this in a PPR? I would take a quick look at your waiver wire and make sure there's better options than what I've listed today to give you some confidence later on in the season in case Tua gets hurt. But I think that as long, like if you've got Jordan Love and Matthew Stafford, those guys are available on the wire. You can be pretty confident that later in the season, you'll have better options than, just in case of a Tua injury. But I think that's where, if you need the running back, Jerome Ford is pretty steady. He's getting lots of touches, and the Cleveland Browns offense is doing a little better. So I like that. What do you think, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of thinking maybe to see if there's anyone better than, not that Ford's bad, but I think Kyler might be kind of a hot commodity right now with so many quarterbacks hurt and so many random quarterbacks starting. You may be able to get another bump up from Ford. But I don't hate that anyway, but I would at least look around and see if maybe you can get, not necessarily a tier up, but maybe a few guys up from Ford.
Yeah, no, makes perfect sense. Stipo says they'll take the 2023 tight end field over 2022. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a much better season tight end wise. It's still pretty rough. You start looking around tight end 8, 9, 10, but at least it goes like 6 deep instead of 2 deep this year.
Right.
All right, Jen, another almost equally important question that I have for you every single week. Is it a good week to stream kicker?
It's actually a decent week to stream kicker. It's definitely a better kickers than tight end. Let's put it that way. And we need to keep it rolling. We had a really good week last week. I'm gonna stop for a second and pat myself on the back.
You deserve it.
All 5 of my kicker streamers came in as starters with like top 11 or under.
Jason Myers, man, that was your top one. I grabbed him in most leagues. And
he was even Cairo Santos, who was my deep league streamer, was like kicker 5 on the week. It was ridiculous.
Nice.
So it was a good week for kicker streaming. So let's hopefully we'll run it back again. The top guy we have is a bye week casualty, which is great for us, and that's Jason Sanders against Vegas. He's only 27% rostered. That's not going to happen again after this week. So if he's there and you need a kicker, I would grab him. with that offense, he's going to continue to score points. The Dolphins are 12-point favorites at home against Vegas. They have the highest implied team total on the slate right now at 29.25. So Sanders is the clear number one if he's available in your league. Like I said, he's only 27% rostered, so there's definitely a chance that he's there as well. Excuse me. Second guy I have here is Jake Moody. He is at home against Tampa Bay, and he's only 25% rostered. I'm guessing because he had a week 9 bye, maybe people just didn't remember.
I think everyone listened to you and grabbed Myers instead of Moody last week.
Yeah, and which was the right call, but Moody's still there in 75% of rosters. So they are 11-point favorites at home against Tampa Bay, and they have a really good, 26.25, pretty hardy implied team total there. And he's kicker 13 on the year. So if he's there, he's a good option there, number 2. The third option, Matt Ammendola, who currently is actually back on the practice squad. He should be back up though because Kaimi Fairbairn is on IR. So unless they plan on bringing, and he was kicker 4 last week, so I don't know why they would bring in someone else when he was good. So I assume there was just some sort of roster whatever move, and they'll bring him back up later on, maybe so they could keep someone else or whatever it is. But he's only 1% rostered clearly in Yahoo leagues. He's not, just so everyone knows, like he's not even on the NFL site. Like when you go to their site to look up stuff, couldn't even find him. I had to go somewhere else to figure out where how he did last week. But that's the story for another day. But yeah, so anyway, the Texans are 4-point favorites against Arizona this week with a 26.75 implied team total. So he's my third guy there. He is widely available, and Houston's rolling, right? And they're playing the Cardinals. So I don't know why, it wouldn't continue this week as far as points go. I do have a bonus fourth guy because I always do. And it's Joey Slye against the Giants. You got to pick on the Giants, right? Everyone picks on the Giants.
You have to.
Joey Slye is only 1% rostered. They're 10-point favorites over the Giants with a 23.50 implied team total. So that may end up being, I don't know how shootouty it can be with the Giants right now with Tommy DeVito, but those NFC East battles sometimes get there. So either way, I think Joey Slye is a good option. And like I said, he's available in 99% of Yahoo leagues right now.
Excellent. And that Washington offense kind of fun to watch. Do you realize Sam Howell leads the league in passing yardage? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's actually crazy. I want to look real quick because someone mentioned Jake Elliott. Yeah, so Jake Elliott is 58% rostered, so he doesn't qualify as a streamer, but he's down to 58, which I'm sure he was probably at 99 before the bye. So you can check and see if he's available. They do have a tough matchup against Kansas City, though, in Kansas City. So
always good to check those guys coming off buys to see.
But yeah, I mean, he is. People clearly still hung on to him because he's still 58% rostered.
Jen, Will Hayes wants to know if they should drop Brandon Aubrey for Jason Sanders.
No. I mean, I'll tell you from a personal, I have Aubrey and I'm not. So I wouldn't. I think that Dallas is just they're scoring way too many points. There's just no reason to chase Sanders. I think Sanders is a guy, if you are streaming or if you have a guy in a buy, I'd go for him. But if you have Aubrey, I'd keep him.
Excellent. George Play 01, thanks for the question. Starting quarterback is Tua. They have Justin Fields on the bench. Last week they needed to add Purdy. Should they now trade Purdy and Tank Dell for Isaiah Pacheco? Looks like they have good receivers. They don't need Tank Dell. I'm okay with that. I don't know that I'm anxious to get rid of Dell, but I don't know that you're starting him with the other receivers that you have. And Isaiah Pacheco is presumably an improvement at running back for you. So I'm okay with that trade.
Yeah.
AKA offered a friend, Josh Jacobs. Let's see, Russell Wilson, I'm guessing, or Garrett Wilson. I'm not sure which Wilson that is, but Jacobs, Wilson, and Christian Kirk for AJ Brown and Najee Harris. If that's Garrett Wilson, then that's a lot to give up, but I'm still okay with it. If it's Russell Wilson, then it's definitely a good trade. I just think AJ Brown is that good. I think it's worth giving up. Assuming you don't have to start Najee Harris, because giving up Josh Jacobs, you're definitely taking a hit at running back. So
correct.
What do you think, Jen?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Najee had a pretty okay week, though, right? Last week he kind of.
But Jaylen Warren was just announced the new starter. I actually don't think that's going to affect usage that much. I think that I think Harris's like 16 touches will go to like 12, you know?
Let me tell you something. I got Jaylen Warren starting in 2 leagues. Like, he is in there. He was a fill-in, and he was well, I guess I have to start Warren. Like, now he's in that spot, and he's not moving right now because he's putting up points for me.
Yeah, but definitely getting AJ Brown, as long as you've got some running back insurance, I'm good on that. Josh wants to know if they should change anything on their roster. They've got Lamar, JT, Aaron Jones. They got Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Travis Kelce, and Christian Kirk. They're 5-5. It's a good team. I don't know why they're 5-5. Maybe just because Lamar has been a little disappointing this season.
Yeah.
But it seems like everyone's going okay. Everyone ahead of them is 6-4.
Well, I think that Jonathan Taylor and Aaron Jones have both had slower starts. Obviously Jonathan Taylor wasn't there, so there was no start, but now he's back, and Aaron Jones seems to be healthy. So I feel like, I feel like you can hang in there and hopefully ride it out, but I don't know. Were you going to say something else, Brandon? I totally cut you off.
Nope, that's it. I had that. I think you're in good shape. I don't know that I see like an obvious move. Also wants to know if they should start Kareem Hunt or Khalil Herbert this week. I would start Herbert if he starts, but if obviously that's still in the air. So, but I think Herbert is more likely to get more touches than Hunt.
Oh, it looks like he's traded for everyone except JT. So he obviously had a different team prior. So that makes sense. But I like your team now. I think you're fine.
Yep, and hopefully Lamar will get back on the. He hasn't been bad because his rushing production. I think he's averaging over 40 rushing yards a game or something like that. So he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been Lamar. You know what I mean?
Not for fantasy purposes. No. He's yeah.
All right, so before we get to the defense streamers, I want to take a minute to talk about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Go to prizepicks.com/accurate. Use code ACCURATE for a first deposit match up to $100. For week 11, I'm eyeing Terry McLaurin to get more than 57.5 receiving yards. He had a down week last week, but he's eclipsed that number in each of his previous 4 games. Faces a Dolphins defense this week that ranks 22nd in AFP to opposing wide receivers. I also like Brandon Ayuk at more than 58.5 yards against a vulnerable Tampa defense. That Tampa defense ranks 30th in AFPA to receivers. Ayuk has eclipsed that number in half of his games this season, and he's been within 4 yards of that number another 3 times. So those are the ones that I like. Don't forget to go to prizepicks.com/accurate and use code ACCURATE for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. So I've got defensive streamers to talk about. I also have a 4-year-old who's screaming at me from the left of me at the moment. I wonder if the listeners can hear that. So, Jen, what I want to hear from you while I try to deal with this situation, I want to hear exactly how you're approaching the Steelers offense right now, because it's so disappointing and they can't score any touchdowns. Outside of Jaylen Warren, what are you doing with all these guys?
It's tough because I actually have we've got Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, who are very highly rostered around the league. And I know most of you guys are super frustrated. I think Kenny Pickett is a guy that whatever, right? I mean, he's a streamer or he's not, and more on the not side, but I don't know. I mean, we have to kind of hope that they can turn this around. I mean, looking at their remaining schedule, I'm going to pull that up real quick since I did not know this question was coming at me. But that's okay because we can make it happen quickly. Looking at their schedule, it's decent, right, in the coming weeks. I mean, this week we have Cleveland, which is going to be a battle. It livens up a little bit with the Bengals in Arizona. And then towards the end of the season, you get the Colts and the Bengals again, and then Seattle. So we have to hope that those guys can kind of turn it around and hope that Kenny Pickett can get something going. Because when they're going, they're going. Like both of the – Pickens has had some great games. Deontay Johnson has kind of, I think he's had one solid game since he came back from injury, but it's tough. I mean, they're guys that, every year we get these guys that are in a tough predicament where you can't really bench them. I mean, you can, but, a lot of people don't have the luxury of doing that in their rosters. So it's difficult. We just have to hope we can turn it around because, unfortunately, it's just not a cut and dry situation. It's not, if this, then this, or, we just have to kind of hope that they can turn it around.
Thank you very much, Jen. I appreciate my 4-year-old has departed the room. It's possible that the screaming will ensue upstairs at some point, but I appreciate you hanging with me. Let's get to the defensive streamers. It's a good week to stream defenses.
Good.
I always recommend the Jaguars. I know they just got trounced by the 49ers, but that was kind of expected. This week, they're at home against the Titans, which is a little bit better of a matchup. Will Levis had a really nice debut, but he's struggled the last 2 weeks. The Jags are the defense special team 14 on the year, and that's with a bye and a bad 49ers week. So, take that for what it is. The Titans are 28th in points scored per game. Titans are 4th in sacks allowed. Jags are still tied for 1st in the league in turnovers. They're a good defense, and I think that they're worth grabbing right now. They're only rostered in 20% of Yahoo leagues right now. Second, the Vikings are playing good defense too. I keep talking about them. They're only rostered in 18% of leagues. Plus, they're at Denver, who's set 22nd in the league in AFPA to opposing defenses. They're tied for 11th in sacks. Danielle Hunter's tied for 1st in sacks. Broncos are tied for 6th in sacks allowed. So I feel like Russell Wilson is going to be running for his life. Vikings are the defense special teams 10 on the year and 10 in the last 4 weeks. So they're surging at the right time. They're playing well. I think that it's a good addition of one you could probably hang on to a little bit. Those are the two I really like, and those are the two that are good streaming options. If they aren't available and you're kind of desperate, I kind of like the Lions. Their defense has struggled this year, but they are at home against the Bears. The Bears are 30th in AFPA allowed to opposing defenses. They're tied for 2nd in turnovers this year, tied for 6th in sacks allowed. The Lions don't really excel at turnovers or sacks, but the Bears are allowing that stuff. So it's one of those bad defense, really good matchup situations. So if you're desperate, I kind of like the Lions. But really, Jags and Vikings, either one of those, I think you really can't go wrong. I think is a good situation.
What do you think about Washington?
I like it. The thing is, Washington's so bad on defense. And they got rid of they can't get any pass rush with Montez Sweat and Chase Young both gone. So yeah. I'm not opposed because the matchup is really good, and I think it is going to be a low-scoring game. But ultimately, I kind of went with the Lions over Washington because at least the Lions have like a good secondary.
No, I get that, and I, in my, I do a Discord AMA every Thursday, and someone asked me, I think it was a couple weeks ago. When you're looking at streaming defenses, like what, would you rather have a bad defense with a good matchup or a good, and it's like, I remember saying like a bad defense is still a bad defense. Mm-hmm. Like even though you have, a weaker set of players on the other side of the ball, they're still a bad defense. And so sometimes you can't really overcome that.
Yeah, so look for sacks and turnovers. Like that's what I tend to try and do. I try to look at potential for sacks and turnovers. And, Tommy DeVito hasn't been bad at avoiding the pass. He hasn't been a good player, but he hasn't been bad at like avoiding pass rush. And mm-hmm. He hasn't really been turning the ball over. They've just kind of been stagnant. So it might be low scoring, and that might really help Washington. But I don't know. I'm just kind of staying away from that game.
Except for Joey Slye.
Except for Joey Slye, who I love. I love Joey Slye. So, all right. So, Jen, I'm always looking ahead to the next week and beyond when I'm setting waiver wire claims on Tuesday nights. So who are the stash players I should be looking at this week?
Okay. Hold on. Let me get back here. I'm sorry. I was looking at something else really quick. Okay. So the first guy I have, I usually do like a one week 12 stash for, a week from now. And then I do the rest. So the guy I have for week 12, and really for the rest, is Rico Dowdle. I've had him. He's been in and out of the stash column all season, but he's only 4% rostered right now. He had 79 yards and a touchdown on 12 carries last week after that game was out of hand. So week 12, as we just talked about, they're playing Washington. That game might get out of hand, and therefore they may throw in Dowdle again to spell Tony Pollard. So I have Rico Dowdle there. I feel like he's one of those guys. He's got enormous upside as a insurance person. I know we don't like the word handcuff. As an insurance RB, moving forward anyway. And
I've been trying to find a better word than handcuff. Like
I know.
Insurance, none of them feel right.
They don't.
So if anyone in the chat has like,
so I ended up saying it anyway, even though we're trying not to.
Right, I'm trying not to. If anyone in the chat has a better word, I'd love to start using it.
Yeah, but he's only 4% roster, which I find kind of crazy. I mean, I have him backup mittens. I have him in a couple spots, and they have a good schedule coming up, and Tony Pollard. I mean, the thing is, they're not going to give Tony Pollard's not going to lose his job. because he's fine as far as the Cowboys are concerned. Fantasy people are not happy, but yeah. So Rico Dowdle is my one guy there for week 12, and then I have two guys who have already been brought up throughout the stream, but we're going to talk about him anyway. Rondale Moore is my first guy, or my second guy, I should say. He's only 9% rostered right now. He had a season high in targets, receptions, and receiving yards last week with Kyler Murray back in the mix. So, yay, right? I mean, maybe he's going to actually feature him, and they have a soft schedule moving forward. So he's a guy that I feel like people should stash. He may not, he may not come out right away, or he may. We don't know. But I feel like
I was going to say, Will Hayes asked if they should drop Quentin Johnson to pick up Rondale Moore. I was going to have you answer that while you're talking Rondale Moore.
I think they're similar. I mean, as far as like tiers go, if you're sick of dealing with Johnston because he's not really doing much, then yeah, mix it up and throw some Rondale Moore in the mix. But I feel like this is the time of year where you kind of get rid of those. The dead weight on the end of your roster that you've just been waiting for something to happen. I mean, Rondale Moore might not be any better than Quentin Johnston, but I'm sure you're tired of staring at him at the end of your bench. So you might as well rotate that and get a new fresh name in there, I guess. So that's that. The third guy I have is a deep cut. It was mentioned by somebody above here, and that is Tanner Hudson, tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals. He is 0% rostered. 10 catches on 12 targets in the last 2 games. He is emerging as that pass-catching tight end for the Bengals instead of Irv Smith. The next 2 games are rough. They play Baltimore and they play Pittsburgh. However, after that, it clears up for those later bye weeks. So if you can afford to grab Hudson now, he might be a good streamer from week 13 on.
I like that we finally have a tight end in Cincinnati that we can kind of be hopeful about because we keep trying,
It's a battle, man. Every year we keep hoping, off season springs eternal or whatever that expression is. But I feel like every June, July, we're like, all right. And then, Irv Smith went there. We're like, all right, here we go. Fire up Irv Smith again. And it was not meant to be. So Tanner Hudson, I mean,
let's go. I'm here for some Tanner Hudson.
10 catches on 12 targets in the last 2 games. You gotta like it. I mean, I feel like if it's working, Joe Burrow's going to keep going. Like I said, though, he does have two rough matchups in the next 2 weeks. But then after that, it kind of opens up and clears up.
Festipo says they're still staring at Rashad Penny on their roster. I give you permission to drop Rashad Penny. I just dropped Kenneth Gainwell, which hurt. So
I actually, right before this podcast, was starting to do my waivers, and I was staring at Kenneth Gainwell in one of my leagues, and I was like, I think I need. We keep waiting because if something were to happen to Swift, like he's there.
Yeah, one of those guys. Yeah.
This might be the week that Kenneth Gainwell. I stop looking at his name because he's not cracking the lineup. Like even on bye weeks, he's not in there. So what?
Yeah. I needed. I had. I needed a new running back, and so I wasn't ready to start him this week. So I'm dropping him, and it hurts a little bit, but that's the way it goes. Jelly of the Month wants to know if they should start Sam Howell over Joe Burrow, and Dobbs over Lamar. I wouldn't start Dobbs over Lamar. I like Dobbs, but Lamar's just too good. Like I just and those division games, Ravens, Cincinnati, like that. I feel like that's going to be kind of a shootout. So. We'll see what happens. I would probably start Burrow over Howell, but you could talk me into Howell. Washington Giants are bad, but that could be a low scoring kind of ugly game, or it could be Washington might beat them real bad. And I don't know. I think that one's got more variation in it. So I'd probably go Burrow, but you could talk me into Howell. What do you think, Jen?
Yeah, it's difficult to recommend either of those guys over the other ones, but I understand where you're coming from. I actually was laughing when I was reading that because I have a league where I have Lamar and I have Howell as my backup, and he's outscored him like the last 2 weeks. But I can't I cannot start Sam Howell over Lamar Jackson. I just can't do it. But I understand the theory behind it, and I understand the galaxy braining to get there. But yeah.
Chris Bartolome, I give you permission to drop Roschon Johnson. It seems like he's third on the depth chart. I know he gets some passing down work, but I don't think it's going to be consistent enough to warrant actual lineups. Space Ghost Force, I don't think it's Olamide, Zacchaeus time or Alberto time, but I appreciate you. And those are some callbacks I appreciate. Let's hear Jen. Toby wants to know Kamara and Downs are on bye. They were holding on to Zay Jones, but, problems with Zay Jones. Trent Irwin, Curtis Samuel on the wire. Which one do you prefer between Trent Irwin and Curtis Samuel this week?
It depends on if T Higgins is back, then I think Trent Irwin is not really an option anymore. Curtis Samuel's kind of intriguing. I mean, he seemed to get more of the work over Dotson last week, but the problem is they just keep flip-flopping and we can't get a good solution. So I would kind of check on the status of the Bengals receivers. If T. Higgins is out again, then Trent Irwin is worth it. Curtis Samuel, I think, might be worth a flyer. Zay Jones, I'm with you. I actually have him in a league. Actually, I think I have him in 2 leagues, and he's been such a waste of space because he keeps, he'll go in for a play, then he gets hurt for another week, and then of course he got arrested last night, which we don't know what the ramifications are for that, or maybe there were, and I missed him today. So yeah, I still haven't answered your question, I don't think, but I guess Samuel for me, but depending on injuries.
Yeah. Also, see if Rondale Moore is on the wire.
Yes. or Michael Wilson. I mean, honestly, Wilson. I think both of them are going to benefit from Murray being back, and they're probably not. People probably aren't clamoring for them on the waiver wire.
Adrian Beaterson, should they trade Jahan Dotson for Noah Brown? I would. Noah Brown's pretty awesome right now. Yeah, so I would absolutely do that.
If that's a possibility, I definitely would do that.
My 40 cal bangs got offered Kyler and Zay Jones for Devontae Adams. Unless you really need the quarterback, I would just keep Devontae Adams. I feel like I said, we've kind of got 2 weird Raiders games with Aidan O'Connell. I'm not saying O'Connell's really good, but we've gotten 2 games where they've faced like decent defenses and they've won and they've been able to just run the ball. Like Josh Jacobs has over 26 touches in both games. Like I don't think we've seen like the volume that we'll see for Devontae Adams yet for the rest of the season. And he did have like 13 targets. So I would stick with Devontae Adams, even though it's concerning what's gone on. Let's see here. Jelly the Month just traded for Michael Pittman as the wide receiver 4. What do you think of Pittman the rest of the season, Jen?
I like Pittman. I think he's been quietly good. And I feel like he's always quietly good. Like, I feel like he's a guy that there was a lot of hype when he entered the league, and then it was kind of a rough start, but I feel like he's quietly good. I think him and Gardner Minshew have a good rapport. Especially as a wide receiver 4. Yeah, I'm in for that.
Okay. All right.
Do you disagree?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. You were.
No, I was reading what my 40 cal says that it's Zay Flowers, not Zay Jones. I still like Devontae Adams better, even if it's Zay Flowers and Kyler. So let's see here. Will Hayes, should we be holding on to Leonard Fournette? Nah.
I actually put him in my stash article this week. Prior to last night's game, I thought that Latavius Murray was done and washed, and apparently he was the beneficiary of the James Cook doghouse last night, and he all of a sudden decided to go off. So now I'm not so sure. I still think he's playoff Lenny, and his name is playoff Lenny for a reason. So I think if you can afford to keep him, I would a little bit, just till we see how it plays out once they activate him from the practice squad.
Mm-hmm. Office Depot wants to know how we feel about trade deadlines. I'm in a league. I don't like him in Dynasty. In redraft, I like him, but I've seen some leagues where once a team is eliminated from playoff contention, they are no longer allowed to make trades, and I kind of like those. But I know that only some sites offer that setting, so that's kind of where I am with there. Jen, your thoughts on trade deadlines?
I like them. I mean, I don't know. I guess I have no opinion on trade deadlines. I think that they're fine. But like you said, if it's just a redraft league, then yeah, you shouldn't be able to trade past a certain point if you're not in the playoffs, because that's all collusion. If it's Dynasty, of course, that's a whole different animal. I think trade deadlines are fine. I mean, I understand not being able to trade up until the last minute, because that's yeah. So yeah, I'm indifferent.
Yep. Toby says Rondale's on the wire, but Michael Wilson is not. I would grab Rondale Moore over Curtis Samuel. Let's see here. Adrian wants to know what to do with Justin Fields. Keeps hearing that he doesn't want to play for them anymore.
I don't blame
on how big your roster is. Like, I'm holding Justin Fields because the rushing production is so much when he does get on the field, but depends what's out there for you. Like, if you have like a noticeable upgrade, like if you could go get Jared Goff or something like that on your waiver. That's a different question than if you're staring at Russell Wilson, So
Jared Goff is like 70-something% wrong. I mean, he's pretty highly rostered.
I was just trying to think of somebody that might be available.
No, I
in
know,
some leagues, but
I was just saying, what a world we live in. I'm sorry, he's 94% rostered.
94%. So
I was more commenting on what a world we live in that Jared Goff is now 94%.
I'm so happy for Jared Goff.
Yeah, me too.
He was cast aside. I love it. Would you drop Landon Michael Wilson? Donald Weber says Landon Michael Wilson. I like Michael Wilson as a stash, as somebody to hold on to. But if you've got a short bench and you need that roster spot, then it's okay to drop him. I like him because he's the only guy on the Arizona roster who does what he does, right? He's an ex receiver, and that's with Kyler coming back, I'm kind of interested in that, but I don't think it's huge. You know what I mean? So Space Ghost Force wants to know about Jaylen Warren as a starter.
Zach, we talked about this already.
We talked about that a little bit. Yeah, we think that maybe the shift goes from 60-40 Najee to 60-40 Warren, but we think both are still going to be in play.
I think it's going to be the same. I don't know. I think it's in name only, and I think they're going to continue to do what they do.
Mm-hmm. Adrian wants to know if they offer Jordan Love for Justin Fields. They want to back up behind Justin Herbert. I'm okay with that. Buy low on Justin Fields. I'm okay with that. Let's see here. Jelly of the Month wonders if Devon Achane is going to play. If he plays, I think you flex him. Although Puka plays Seattle, right? Puka. Yes. They're wondering if they should play Achane or Puka.
Yes, they play at home against Seattle.
Yeah, you got to play Puka against Seattle, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
Achane against Las Vegas.
I was going to say you've got Miami at home against Vegas, and Miami's a different team at home. So
how lucky do you feel, right? If you feel excited, like swinging, like Achane is hard to
yeah, it is. I agree, and I feel like Puka. I don't know. They scare me a little bit. I know Stafford's back, which is good.
Yeah.
But between Cooper Kupp and Puka, it's been a little rough. So, the chain is pretty fresh off a restful IR stint. So he has fresh legs, arms, feet, all of it. So I don't know.
For the playoffs, which side in a PPR you want Kyren Williams and Achane, or do you want David Montgomery and Tony Pollard? I would still bank on touches, even though Kyren and Achane are kind of exciting. I think Montgomery and Pollard are going to get enough touches. So that's.
Yeah, I unfortunately I agree with you. It's the non-sexier side, but I do agree with you.
Alan S wants to know Keaton Mitchell or Ty Chandler priority. Both. I like both. I'm going to side with Mitchell because I think Madison will be back in a week, and I think Mitchell's going to continue to get touches. If Mitchell can get 10 touches, then I love him. He's just not there yet, so I'm nervous like putting him in a lineup, but he's heading.
I take the other side.
Yeah, you like Chandler better?
I like Chandler. Yeah, I feel like yes, Madison will be back in a week, but I mean Madison hasn't been great, and I feel like if Chandler can get rolling, he had a great week last week. Obviously, if he can get rolling again, he might steal that job.
I hope so.
But Mitchell has Gus Edwards to contend with for sure. I mean, Gus is going to continue to get the red zone stuff, so listen, like you said, both. But if I had to pick, Chandler.
I think that's a very, very, very fair stance. That makes sense. Traded Reese Thomas, traded Amari Cooper for Devontae Smith. What do we think? I like both sides of that trade. I'm okay either way. Like whichever one you like better, I'm okay with. So, do you have a preference on Cooper and Smith?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just don't. I'm not a big Deshaun Watson believer. I don't know. I just feel like I'd rather have, to me, the better quarterback, the better offense. I mean, Watson might be hurt again, and we may be looking at PJ Walker anyway, right?
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's supposedly there's an ankle issue that we
right.
Don't know
there's something going on there. Yeah. But yeah, I think like you said, they're similar players as far as fantasy production. So.
Yep. Alex Nicholas trading Austin Eckler for Debo, Walker, and Pittman. That's a lot for Eckler. I think I like it. I think Eckler is hard to give up because he finds the end zone so much. Walker's kind of trending downward, but he's still good. And Pittman and Debo are both startable. I like that. If you need the depth, I think that's a good return for Eckler.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, I think it's fine.
Alex Forrest, should they trade Garrett Wilson for Devontae Adams? I would do that. It's hard to know which quarterback to put your stock in, Zach Wilson or Aidan O'Connell. So like I guess I would side with Adams just because I think he gets more targets, but I don't know. I kind of love and hate both those players right now.
Yeah, it's tough to rely on Zachity Zach, and we don't know much. I mean, Aidan O'Connell, we've got a small sample size. Yeah, I think they're both very talented receivers, right? So it's just a matter of, like you said, which one you're putting stock in.
Absolutely. Last question, and then I will let Jen get on with her evening. Toby wants to know if Jalen Guyton is worth adding to the end of the bench. They're done with Quentin Johnston. I'm kind of staying away from every Chargers receiver that's healthy outside of Keenan Allen right now. So I just don't. I just think it's too frustrating to try to figure out which one to start. So I'm just avoiding them. So go get Rondale Moore.
Yeah, I feel like what we watched yesterday, or what day is it? What Sunday? Herbert was a little off too. I mean, I know Allen ended up having a huge day, but there were some weird throws, and Guyton, I feel like we've been waiting for him to be a thing for a few years now, and it's just not happening. So get yourself some Rondale Moore or like Demario Douglas, someone like that.
Douglas, he looks good. He looks
I mean, he's off this week, but if you're just rounding out the end of your bench, I would go for someone like that.
I love it. All right. So thank you, Jen. Always a pleasure. Any final thoughts before we go?
No. I'm blank. No, not at all. Happy Thanksgiving. I guess we'll be here on Tuesday. So no, not happy Thanksgiving yet. We'll handle that next week.
Double happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving now and later. That's
listen, Thanksgiving. The food is everything for me. So I'm already like over here thinking about the side item sampler that I'm going to create.
Very exciting.
But no, I've got nothing really. Good luck everybody this week, and good luck in the waiver wire this evening / morning.
Excellent. Thank you to everyone in the chat for joining us. We appreciate you and love chatting with you every week. Thank you to the listeners for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. We're here every Tuesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so come join us throughout the season live on the 4for4 YouTube channel to discuss streamers that'll get you through your season. You can follow us on Twitter at Jen Akins NFL and at 2guysbrandon. Thanks for checking us out, and have a good day.